Whispers tearing lives, hearts raw scarred. Judges grinning, deals in shadows locked. Case workers speaking truth they've mocked. Gunning on for justice, rage intense. Bringing kids home from this broken fence. Corruption weighs heavy, laws collapse. Kids go missing behind their maps. CPS stealing kids, no trace. Lies build walls, the truth they erase. Gunners howl, cuts through the air. He won't stop midnight, he'll get there. Dark hallways where the guilty play. Secrets hiding, hope fades away. A man with fire, voice like a storm. Breaking chains, reform, transform. Gunning on for justice, rage intense. Bringing kids home from this broken fence. Corruption weighs heavy, laws collapse. Kids go missing behind their maps. Family shattered, cries dulled by fights. CPS takes them in the dead of night. But Gunner speaks of brighter days, cut through the lies. Light ablaze! Family shattered, cries dulled by fights. CPS takes them in the dead of night. But Gunner speaks of brighter days, cut through the lies. Light ablaze.
Hey look, this for every mama got her baby snatched on some bogus shit. For every pops they locked out the crib like he ain't blood. CPS, y'all been eating off pain for too long. We know what you on. But now it's war, this gunning foe, CPS. Kick doors, no warrants, they taking our seeds. Say it's neglect, but they planting they greed. Feds in they pocket, judge got a fee. Run it like a business, adoption spree. Contracts overseas, got partners in France. But shorty from Shy, he ain't get a chance. Mama work 2 jobs, daddy do right, but they still snatch his baby in the middle of the night. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They labeled us monsters, called us unfit, but it's they paperwork dirty, all of it forged and flipped. How the fuck they selling babies to a bidder overseas? Then tell the fam you unworthy. Man, please, we got mamas in pain, daddies in tears. They breaking our hearts, been doing it for years. Now we riding with Gunner, and we got the proof. Sworn under oath, now it's time for truth. Trump got the team and the pen in his hand. He said bring them home, now that's the plan. You feds been hiding, but it's over now. We moving like an army, and we ain't bowing down. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's off of Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They ain't gods, they ain't law, they just people, corrupt people. And when the people rise, ain't no system safe. The Chi-Town, it's the movement. We gunning for CPS, and we coming heavy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait, wait.
Sometimes you gotta show a motherfucker that you a motherfucker too. Sometimes you gotta show a motherfucker that you a motherfucker too.
Oh, sorry guys. I don't. Can you hear me now? Sorry, we've had a technical thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'll start over. This technical thing's just driving me nuts. um, so we keep you up to date on our case and everything else. And once again, hi, my name's Gunner. Volume issues, mic issues here in the studio. Welcome to Gunning for CPS. I'm your host, Gunner. Um, welcome again. Sorry guys for the technical difficulties. Hopefully this is fixed now. Should be good. Okay, there we go. So what's going on with our federal case and where we have labeled this the reckoning. This is the case, the we the people's case. It's also the tip of the spear to abolish CPS nationwide. There's some intricacies in this thing. There are some things we can share, and there are things we cannot share. Um, some of it deals with strategy, some of it deals with um, right place, right time type thing. We're just, like I said, right now, just trying to do that. Well, under our investigation with our case, one of the other updates is I had gone through this, this bullshit with family court, then appealed it, and it went into civil court, and it was all bullshit, and they framed me 100%. And we were looking at every little thing, but there was something that was just we couldn't get over. That we had forensic interview that was, and guys, if this is what I'm talking about, if you're from Tennessee or you know nobody's from Tennessee, and it may apply in your state, look up your policies and procedures. This is very important. Why? Because they made a change in the state of Tennessee effective this year, and it is retroactive. So that means it can go back as far as it's allowed, all the way back to the beginning. That if you had a forensic interview in family court or civil court, whatever court it may be for your state. What happened here in Tennessee, in both courts, family court and civil court, um, did not follow the rules of procedure or policies and procedures for entering a forensic interview, which was 100% tainted, by the way, because they tampered with the witness for over 2 hours with no recordings. They deleted it. I mean, they've deleted evidence and all sorts of stuff in my particular case, and we've got them to where they admit to it. That's how arrogant they are, or stupid. Don't know which. But the concept is during the course of this, they passed a thing to saying for a forensic interview in the state of Tennessee to be admitted, it must meet this certain standard. And this is under standard, it has not changed. That the forensic interviewer can testify that the entering of the forensic interview as evidence is true and consistent, number one. Or number two, the child must do it. Now, one or the other. But it does not negate the fact that the child must be made available for cross-examination. That is such a huge due process thing that even Tennessee is saying up at the policy here. Let's clarify this, that we got to make sure that they have to be there. And these judges should have known it. Why? Because that they have to be there for cross-examination was prior. So the judges and magistrates, even in my case, knew about it or should have. No, I can't take and put this in as evidence, which was the only thing they had to twist our family up. And they used this by entering the evidence with nobody, not able to cross-examine. Matter of fact, the GAL told my wife, don't bring those kids in the courtroom. And did it in front of her attorney, not just her. So now that's a witness, and that other witness or that other attorney now has to tell the truth of what was said and what was done because it was specifically asked. No, and the burden, the court, the funny part is the first time it never happened at all. There wasn't even any of that present in the first one before the magistrate. So it should have never been admitted in the first place. There's a huge issue right there on that one. But then second time with the other one, the judge here in Blount County, Crooked Tammy Harrington, and I'm going to call her out by name because you did this. You're damn right. And I know Jessica Saxon talks about her too a lot with Tanawa. Yeah, Jessica used to live here in Blount County where I live. That's how much corruption's going on. She's got the same judge. This crooked judge allowed forensic interview that told my attorney on the record, we have her on the record saying this. Well, if you want her in here or the witness to be here for cross-examination, you should have put them on your witness list. No, ma'am. That code specifically says if they get the forensic interview in, they also have to provide the child for cross-examination, which never happened, which makes the forensic interview inadmissible in court. So this is retroactive. So if you did not have the child or the forensic interviewer, which is now the standard, they added the forensic interviewer can be one of them, to testify that that forensic interview was true and accurate, to get on the stand and say that, it's not admissible. So if you've got a case in Tennessee, you can now file an appeal to have your case overturned and have your kids home if they didn't do that. Forensic interview is out. And if that's all they had in a lot of cases, this is a lot of shit. This is a lot for Tennessee. And I'm not kidding you guys. Get this out to people in Tennessee. Brittany, I see you up there in the audience. You better start shouting from the rooftops over there in Rutherford County in Tennessee and start spreading this all the way across here. If you had a forensic interview and that was the only thing they had on you, especially you want your babies home right now, file with the state Supreme Court of Appeals and put it under new evidence. We're going to tell you how to do it. Put it under new evidence, file it with the state court of appeals. And when they don't meet, the word in the code says it's a standard, it means it's a must meet. When they don't, and that's removed, case dismissed. Get your babies home. Yeah. Hey, that's the same thing we're doing. We've got it in. We filed ours Friday. And we filed it under Rule 60, saying the judge should have known these codes and these procedures and failed at her job to protect my rights, not only my rights, but their own code. And there's no way to interpret it. Whoop, my camera went out. Let's see if it'll go back again. Maybe. So, guys in Tennessee, and I know I'm a little blurry, it'll fix itself here in a minute. In Tennessee, if this has happened to you, even if it's an old case, 10 years in and you're still fighting, file. You want to know what the code is? I'm going to put it in here. It's just that simple. I'm going to put the Tennessee code, the TN code for this that has changed. You're going to love what this is. And it's so easy to remember. Right here in the comments. Right there. Tennessee code 24-7. Sorry, I should have put another dash in there. But it's -123. So 24/7/123. It's that easy as the code to remember. There's a dash in there between the 7 and the 1. I don't know why the keyboard didn't pick it up. I typed too fast or something. You look and you quote that code and you simply say, this is my case. When you file it in the proper format for the Court of Appeals, this is my case number. Don't get into stealing your children or anything else. That a forensic interview was entered, but did not meet code TN 24-7-123 as it's stated today. There was no cross-examination by myself or the attorney that represented me and all of the children that gave forensic interviews that was considering it was an issue. Therefore, that is inadmissible as evidence. And if that was a thing hanging you up and there was nothing else there, you get your case overturned. And then you get right back at it. And that opens you up to a lawsuit because then the state itself has to admit it's broken the law. Not just broken the law. When they did this, right there admits that they've broken that code because it's not there. The state is going to have to confirm it. That also means it's a due process violation. You did not have a right to face your accuser. That's enough to get that judge removed and magistrate both. Done. You'll never serve again because you violated your oath. You violated the Constitution when I didn't get due process. And it was just as simple. I never got a chance to cross-examine my accuser. It was a one-sided, corrupt fucking courtroom. And that's not what the code says it's supposed to be. That's how rogue these judges and magistrates, I'm above the law, I create the law, I'm something. No, Congress does that. And now we're going to get taught a lesson. It's over with. If the child, once again, Misty, if they talked about what was said in there, then they have to have firsthand knowledge, not secondhand knowledge. Otherwise, it's called, as Your Honor, hearsay. And that's up for somebody to determine that and listen. When you are in court, that makes a big difference between filing papers and court, is you have to be attentive to what's being said and the context it's being said. It's a whole different situation. Sorry, weather's a little crazy. It's getting fall and a little crusty. But for some reason, it's still hot. Go figure on certain days. So that particular code, if you have a case in Tennessee, even 10 years, almost 18 years old or whatever else, find the chink in their armor. This is huge. This word says in the code standard. It's a must. You must meet this. If you don't, this is not. And that is everything. And Redondo, I don't, Beach, that doesn't surprise me for conspiracy because it's conspiracy in every state. Every case is conspiracy. As we covered before, and we may cover this again, but we're getting through, trying to get through the Declaration of Independence. that through that for the educational part, but may touch on again on the bonds that you guys have to do. That they take out bonds in state court. I'll call it a bid bond, a security bond, they have an insurance bond on some of them. This is how they make money on the back door. This is why you go to court and you wonder, how is all this getting paid for? They tap into your Social Security trust. That's why they get your Social Security number, because they take it out of there. That's how they're getting paid. At the same time, they're wanting even more money into enterprises stuff. They've been funding this stuff off our backs. We shouldn't have half the stuff that exists today because it's unconstitutional. States are supposed to be dealing with people in the commercial environment. Okay, commercial. And it's a huge violation. The other thing they're going to have to answer for that they don't have an answer for is go look up in the original Constitution. There's no amendment to have changed what's put in there. It doesn't exist. Rooker versus Feldman has nothing to do with it. It gives jurisdiction to the federal court with Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2. All cases, not some, not a few, not a select or the ones we want, all cases, it says in the Constitution, where the state is labeled as defendant or plaintiff. The Supreme Court, the federal court, has original jurisdiction. So the fact that they've been doing this for decades, holding this particular bullshit in here under some sort of contract law, and there was nothing signed in my case, now you have to deal with, why would I even have to go before you? You don't have jurisdiction because you had bias. And on top of it, you had huge bias, enough to frame somebody for some bullshit. And now the evidence comes out and everything else. It takes me a little time. I don't have those government paychecks, and this is what we do for a living to trace all this stuff down. We get to it as quick as we can. We have to sift through the information. We have to use critical thinking. And there's a lot of people that don't have those skills. What applies, how it applies, the way it works, and this and that. This is why they hate the trade so much. This is why they go after them so hard. People that are in any of the trades, especially. Why? You're a critical thinker. Because if you have to do anything with the trades and you do it professionally, I was a master electrician. I had several masters, actually. But I know the gist of every single thing to build a house from the ground up or a building from the ground up, the codes and everything else, and where to find the codes and what to do, and all that stuff, to where those are the things we had to do. The codes were our guidelines, but we understood it was a living, breathing thing, which is why you're open to interpretation of some sorts. You have to make it work for your situation. But these are the absolutes you must meet. That's no different than the law. It's very easy to go from a trade that has codes that you have to meet the codes, and you keep up on those things, and you keep up on your, continued education units. And I was certified in many, many different things, a lot of big infrastructure. I held big infrastructure together. Like, I helped maintain that if something went down massively, like if you had a natural disaster and some of this, I worked on the generator systems, the backup systems. When all that shit goes down and the generator kicks on, what happens when that goes wrong? Now you got a problem. Who was the person you called? Me. Because I was certified. That was huge. And they don't realize what they took out when they took out a person like me and did the crap that they did. All the illegal and unconstitutional stuff and criminal stuff that was done, not just by CPS. CPS was the start of it. But the fact of the GALs were both criminals, violated their oaths. Where did they protect the children? Where, the children have constitutional rights too. When they were questions, anything else, did you give them a right to an attorney? Oh, they don't want to think about that. Why? We're child services. Children have no rights and this and that. That's what they want you to believe. But you go into a federal court, those constitutional rights automatically, matter of fact, some will argue before your first breath on this earth. Even when you're in the womb, there's laws on that. And there's a lot of decisions and stuff on that. Where do the rights begin? Not about choice. Where are the rights and where does the rights begin? And that's been an ongoing conversation, not just in our country, but in several countries. But there's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of lies, and what we're seeing now today that should blow our minds is what we knew was a reality is now not a reality anymore. Why? Do you see the world changing before us? We're trying to go back to the Constitution and to it a legitimate legal way, but there's so much evil and corruption that they are uprooting left and right and left and right. And it's nothing about administration or this side or that side. It's about individuals and holding them accountable. How certain things are, they don't tell you. You know what caused the real stock market crash of the 1930s? The Federal Reserve, the banking system. Go look at it. That's when they first started implementing, trying to sell off your future labor units as investments and costs. And they build you out in an ungodly amount per hour to be part of this big cog, to produce things, this and that, to go into the workforce, whether or not you're there. No other system. Once again, they took over public education. Look into it. You don't believe me? What good has it done? We have gone from being the most educated and high up in the education from the 20s, 30s, 40s. It was going up and up and up, and then it just nosedived again. And you can track that if you're in education or if you've had kids. That went along with Common Core, or Commie Core, as I like to call it, because it was garbage. It was meant. Do you know that why Common Core was invented? I believe somebody's mind. Matter of fact, I was talking to our producer today, and it blew his mind. He didn't know this. That Common Core, one of its key designers of Common Core, was due to the fact that during that period of time in the 2000s, around that time, this and that, certain people got together with the Board of Education and said, here's our standards. And instead of letting the states take and decide what they want to do, they had a centralized thing that now we can program. That's the problem. One of the issues with federal programs is it makes all the states have to participate a certain way, which can or cannot be manipulated, which it was manipulated. Common Core or the Board of Education came in during that time, and you could do your research, go back and look what I'm saying at the same time. There was a gap that was here and here. This was the Black and Hispanic community. This is the white community. Okay. This is how they measure this stuff internationally, nationally, and everything else. They noticed in America between, I think it's the 70s, all the way up to, like the 2000s, this and that, like a big study that there was a huge gap, that whites were becoming more educated and more chances to do this and that, while the Black community and Hispanic communities were not doing as much, keeping them in a labor class. In other words, not a lot of white collar jobs, not a lot of other things, this and that. Well, their concept, instead of raising the bar from here to meet up here and close that gap, some idiot had a freaking design, this guy that designed this shit, and said, let's just dumb down these people. Here comes Commie Core. What happened? The gap shortened. It's with intolerance, because then it doesn't look racial. That's what they were trying to do, was eliminate the race argument. Oh, white people are better educated. That had nothing to do with it. The issue was within the Black and Hispanic communities. We're getting a less quality education for a reason. And it's all around. It's all known, guys. This is not nothing new. You can research it. It's coming out left and right with all this stuff. These are absolute truths. If you don't believe me, look at the urban areas. And if a lot of people, if you grew up in big urban areas and stuff like that, let me give you a concept. There's several towns, Detroit, Michigan, Gary, Indiana, a lot of those other things that were thriving small Black businesses that supported movements such as Martin Luther King, such as Malcolm X. That's who was giving them the money to do all the stuff they were doing, just like anybody else. What did they do from those inner cities and this and that? Time and period, certain people turned around and said, no more money for them, no more thriving within their communities, and took out all the big businesses and everything that everybody had got tied up to and drawn to, like the Detroit factories and everything else for all this work, or Gary with their steel, Pittsburgh, those places that now have ghettos. That's what happened. Not us, not anybody in particular, nobody to point their finger. A group of people did this to control another amount of people. They were being unconstitutional. And nobody was there to stand up or do half the things. Now some of the things are coming out about the Martin Luther King, it actually being a something similar to the Kennedy assassination, that this was like a psyop, and this has to do with MK Ultra. And now there's stories of things coming out with the Martin Luther King, and these are just what's being reported, and by the Black communities. And I talked to a couple of people that were there at the march when I grew up. A lot of things start to add up a little bit more. That they were doing these freak offs or these orgies and stuff like that, before all this. Excuse me. So you got all this going on. Does this sound familiar though? It's a different time period, but the same shit, the same history is repeating itself. You may have got somebody from Hollywood that was doing that, but how many people have been feeding the same thing like they were with P. Diddy over in Washington? Nobody wants to have that conversation. What they don't want is free. They want you under the thumb, and it's about power and control. We have a trading system that doesn't require money or anything else. If I have something and you have something, we trade. There's no tax involved. We used to be able to do that all the time. You do that because you're utilizing or facilitating and using a middleman. If you didn't have to use the middleman, and now in this day in technology, you have the internet. You can order your damn groceries from all over the country if you want. You don't need a grocery store. You can order everything. You can have those centers like warehouses and do that through deliveries. There's no sense walking around the store and doing all this other stuff. You can take your time, look through labels right there on the internet. All of that is now obsolete, but they make tons of money off of it. Think about large corporations, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot. Gosh, you can't think of the other one. Tractor Supply is one of them. And I know there's another grocery store. I can't remember. It was a lot through the Midwest, but they're beginning to expand. And then you've got gas stations that are all over the place. This is going to affect everything. It's going to cause what a lot of people called, in a way, the reset that people have been screaming about. This is the type of reset. We're going to have to pull away from this stuff. We're going to have to learn something new. This is a huge time in history, not just through CPS and the stuff they're doing. Our whole country is now moving back towards the Constitution and calling this bullshit out. People are awake. People are speaking up. Your voices are being heard. We're no longer going to be quiet. But now we have to come with some sort of communication that makes sense besides that of, we'll say, the words of the slaves, the language of the slaves. We have to talk like it. We have to educate. And that's the whole point of our Constitution, is it was supposed to keep that standard that you could defend yourself in a federal courtroom. But most of us haven't experienced the federal courtroom. It's all been state bullshit. That the only jurisdiction they have is through contract law. When you sign something with them, or you're commercial. One or the other. They don't have jurisdiction over anything else. Unless the Congress has given them the right to do that. They said as far as murder and things like that, those criminal aspects, absolutely. They have to have permission from Congress, though. And you're hearing a lot of people, like especially law enforcement, that's saying ignorant, stupid shit. Well, that's the state law. There is no state law. They have codes and statutes. Codes and statutes are not law. That has been determined by the federal court already. How can you say anything else? Well, that's this state law. It's not. It's a code or statute. Why are you lying to people? And you're in that position right there. Right there's another fucking charge on them. Why? You misrepresented what you said. No, how many people? I didn't realize it was that. You misrepresented when you said it was the law, and you did it from a position of authority. You committed perjury. Most people don't think of this stuff. Yeah, they lied to you. So did the judge, so did the court. When I went to say, well, you violated state law, blah, blah, blah. What's it say, Your Honor? It says code. If you're in Tennessee, it's Tennessee Annotated Code, TCA. Whatever your state may have, it'll say those are the codes. Statutes are a little bit different. and they're codified different. But when you go into court, you have a code. You have violated a code. I'm not doing anything commercially. And I haven't contracted with you to say I'm going to do something that I haven't done. At the same time, with CPS, the other problem that they've got that's a huge one is a state does not have the right. This is why they fear our case so much. These are the questions we're going to come up. When does the state have the right to give away the duties that is done and done by the voting process of a duly elected constitutional sheriff? The state doesn't answer. The sheriffs don't answer to the state. This is a big misconception. They answer to the people of their county. That is the problem. They have overlapped their duties and everything else. Well, we're going to umbrella you under the state program of that. No. The sheriff is the ultimate authority and the highest authority in every county. This is the problem, is bad training. They've done this systematically by taking control of those training systems and uneducating these people. These sheriffs, there is actually a federal book that they must meet a standard to read. Big old book. Darren, I think, has a copy of it too. He's put out there, because I got a copy myself of this book. Sheriff's duties nationally must meet this. You know why here's one. Here's another thing you may not know. You know why there's a deputy in your county courtroom? Not to hand judge papers back and forth and all that other stuff. That's a nice little cute duty. But you see how the courts overtook the elected officials, a representative of the people, by the sheriff's department, because that's what you do with your sheriff and your deputy. That deputy has got the power to arrest the judge if he hears or sees something unconstitutional or illegal. He's there for constitutional matters. Matter of fact, they're pretty much federalized. So when they refuse to do nothing, or the bailiff, as they call them, and they look down their nose at these officers, these deputies, because they have no fear of the deputies arresting them or doing anything, because they've been told not to. This is your job. It's a cush job. Hand the papers back and forth to that, and no additional training to listen for constitutional rights violations, such as this, such as that, enough to where they hear it and they're actively part of it. They have a sworn duty to do something because they have firsthand experience of it. They're supposed to make arrests and then march you straight over the magistrate. Hey, this person just said this and said this on the record, and I put them under arrest because that's a constitutional rights violation. But you're not going to hear that because they've not been trained properly. And a lot of people over here, deputies that do listen to this, are turning around and going, oh shit, you mean my deputies have got the power to arrest the judge? Yeah, dumbass. Who trained you? When did you take time out of this good old boy system that Bob's your uncle playing politics, and you got to meet the bare requirements of knowing what the duties of your job is? And one of them is not to surrender the power of the sheriff to the state. When that happened, your sheriff should have been going to local judges, should have been doing, and writing out arrest warrants to put those asses in jail for even trying to put that on the sheriff's department, that we have to this, we have to that, and strip them of their powers. Because the state, as elected officials and stuff like that, do not have the power to override the duties that we, the people, elect someone to do. It's like voting for a president, and you think the person up there that's the president is there, but that's not who's running. It's his old lady that's got the strings or whatever to him or whatever else, or the vice president's running everything, because they're incompetent. They're just a puppet. That's not the way it's done. That's why it was written the way it was written. Protections of our constitutional right, and they have stripped away those layers of protection to where you and I are supposed to be able to relax, to where we expect judges and magistrates to know the Constitution, know the rights, know what's allowed, know what's not allowed. But you know what? They sold their soul out for fucking money. Well, I get it. This will go into my retirement. I can judge or magistrate for a couple of years, go back into private practice, and just live the easy life. And that's what these people do, because they've set it up like this. These are why these courts are so damn corrupt. But how are we going to know that unless we educate ourselves on our actual rights and what it says, or why we broke free, what we did? So, okay. So we're going to go to this. We're going to revisit once again where we left off in the Declaration of Independence. And I want you guys to come through this, and we're going to maximize this a little bit so we can read this, and I'll try and scroll it from the other screen. But this is the section after we've made our proclamation of how things are fucked up. This is now going into the Declaration of Independence, where it's listing the crimes of Britain and the king of what they're doing that's so fucked up and so unconstitutional and so corrupt, of why we're breaking free. We're not just coming and say, well, we've had enough of your shit, we're gone. We're listing their crimes in the Declaration of Independence. And you guys don't, if you haven't gone through this and read this yourself, you really need to. And look at it in this perspective, and you wish somebody would teach you this, or you had a teacher to go through. These are the reasons why. And when you start reading some of this stuff, and I'm going to read ahead for you, that's the same shit that's going on today. No shit. Why do you think we're all up in arms and we're having a damn fit? And listen, a lot of those things, a lot of corruption. And the other question that they took away from us, not just that layer of protection, but where do we go when something's happened to us? Where do we run? What court do we file in? We don't even have an education, and we pay supposedly an attorney that is familiar with these systems, that they know what the fuck they're doing. And then you find out these bastards are either real buddy with the judge, where they got a bunch of cases to where every time they come in, Bob's your uncle, and it's an automatic win for them. Or you've got these corrupt motherfuckers that put their head up just a little bit, but they don't put their head all the way up and do everything they're required. Like, if you see a judge doing an unconstitutional act, you have a duty and obligation. Otherwise, you become a co-conspirator in the crime of what the judge did. You know, like the judge up in Kentucky that ran her mouth in my wife's case in the first time, how she hates homeschooling. Well, ma'am, little message, that was a direct objection to an executive order by the President of the United States that you were required to follow. You don't get that choice to make that for her. That's the mother's choice. That's her choice. And you stole it from her. And you threw the kids in public school. Guess what? Now you've made complicit to be sued is that public school for the crimes that they've done by educating the children against the First Amendment right. And to take those kids into that school. They don't have that right, once again, because crimes have happened. When you opened your mouth about that, and then a bunch of other stuff with hearsay, and took it as judge, in other words, you're taking this as fact on fourth or fifth person hearsay and considering it true and evident. That is so damn illegal. It's not even legal in your own damn state. But now you've been caught. And all that's got filed this week. Yeah, when it comes to that, hey, come Monday morning, there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings in a couple of states and a federal courtroom. Let me tell you something, because our team has been fucking slammed busy, and we've been out there ready to fuck you up. And you're about ready to get fucked up on a Monday morning. Hard. Because once all this comes through, all that other stuff, and then the main case of everything is overturned, what are you going to do now? Because now the states admitted you did this. So let's go into this here. Before we get too far, we're talking about their crimes. Let's talk about what Great Britain did to the Americas right here. He has dissolved the representative houses. In other words, they don't have a say in nothing. Repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the right of people. Hey, I'm going to puff up. What are you going to get? Retaliation. That's that line right there. I'm going to be retaliated against. Is that happening? Still is happening today. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation having returned to the people at large for their exercise. In other words, we get a say in it. It's not just a judge. We the people, a jury. There's no jury, just one person saying something and his word's gold. That don't go there. Doesn't that work a lot for CPS? That's why we're supposed to have due process to eliminate bullshit. That's happening with CPS. We can relate all these to CPS. And it's not hard to take and connect the two. I mean, and it's all through here. This is why we revolted. Right here. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states. Oh, population control? We ain't dealing with that. For that purpose, obstructing the laws of naturalizations of foreigners. In other words, people coming to settle the land because nothing was there. It's not a settlement. And once again, that conversation, oh, well, you're all this, that. No, we're citizens. We're trying to integrate into the land in a land of foreigners. We're trying to do this, and refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations other places hither. In other words, get out of here. We're taking it over with no just cause. Now, in our history, the country did have those same things that did a lot of that to the Native Americans, which caused the Trail of Tears. Once again, we got to accept the good and the bad, people. We made mistakes, but we learn from them. We're supposed to, but it's still going on today. And to encourage others or migrations to other places and raising the conditions of the new apparition of the land. In other words, they were trying to implement what they wanted and not what the people that were trying to find the balance. Don't force me to do something that's unnatural. It's not over there. It's here. It's a different place, different set of rules. He's obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishment judiciary powers. There's just one or two people saying something this time. You go to look back at it, there was nothing fair about it. You went before a magistrate or somebody that was a king, and that was it. One person hears you. It depends on who was paying the judge off or what was going on at that time. There was mass corruption with their judges. We're not getting fair hearings. He has made judges dependent on his will alone. In other words, somebody else is not the Constitution. That's supposed to be with CPS, why they violate the Constitution, but it's about the will of what? CPS in the courtrooms in these family courts, which is massively corrupt, unconstitutional, illegal, and criminal. For the tenure of their office and the amount and payment of their salaries. You know who pays CPS? We do. We do. So what are you going to do if you're paying for this shit? Quit paying it. Quit giving them a check. The power resides in the people. I'm not paying for that anymore. Try calling up at your state senate. How do I take and make sure CPS doesn't get a dime of my money that you get paid for? They don't depend on the people. This is why they depend on those federal funds such as Social Security and those NGOs that are in the state, non-government agencies, to still get their money and move their money around to do the things they need to do. That's what's being called out right now. NGOs that has nothing to do about the people and not for the best construct. Come on. One company, what was it in, California or I don't know, Nevada or someplace like that, had a farm that they spent $10 million on for horses that's never been used for like rehabilitating people and all this other stuff. $10 million grant. Where'd all the money go? And is that particular ranch or that horse farm a company that, somebody that directs that money or anything else like that now they get to house their horses or anything else, or they sit on the panel, or they make, they're making money off of they're a part owner of that particular stable or something like that. Look at all the money you got. Well, we could do all sorts of nice things and make it nice and call about this, but there's nobody around us. That's like bringing an ambulance to the hospital. It doesn't make sense. You got to have the ambulance out in the field, bringing people to the hospital, that type of thing. But when there's nobody to serve, you're just collecting money. That's called fraud. That's never going to work here. It may be this, it may be that, but there's nobody around. You're looking at helping people with this, that. Well, then move to the area or get to the area or advertise to the area that it's free, to do this stuff. Or some sort of, conversation. But they don't do that. They just collect the check, and hence fraud. Let's go on. Wow. This is yeah, it's going to get deep here, guys, real fast. He's made judges depend on this will. Okay, has erected a multitude of new offices. Isn't CPS a newer office? Isn't this a new office? That a new office? These to better you with these government programs? No, it's more control. And sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Boy, does that sound like CPS. Aren't they a new office? And what do? Harass the people and come after our resources, our money, and tie you up in court. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislators. What do they use now? Police officers, law enforcement, this and that. They're armed armies that come to your home in no time of war with a threat. Well, I'm just a cop. Well, then you should have relinquished your weapon. You're not here for this and that. And you're not even supposed to be here anyway. It's not a criminal act. You're here on a civil matter. What the hell? He is effective to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. In other words, to the people. We don't have access to it. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution. Haven't we talked about the bar, and all these other people have sworn to a institution over the Constitution? Hasn't that been a concept and a discussion that's been going around lately? Yeah. And unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their actions of pretended legislation. You don't really get a say. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. Police, law enforcement presence, large bodies to what? Control us. You getting this? You know who the police work for? The mayor. They serve no master. They don't serve the people. They serve the cities. The sheriff's office, they're supposed to be serving the county, but they serve the state and whatever else it takes in and the county, the county as much of the corruption instead of, where's the justice? Where are we supposed to go? Because we can't even go to our local courtrooms to find justice. This is a joke. Here's one for protecting them. Don't they have immunity? Yeah, they do. By a mock trial. Ain't that what family court is? Kangaroo court? From punishment for any murderers which they see, which they should commit to the inhabitants of these states. No, come on. Cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Trade restrictions. I can't trade with my neighbor. I got to use your cash system, right? My EB, this and this, that, all this digital system. Push me into that. Imposing taxes on us without our consent. Who volunteered to pay property tax? I didn't. So why do we have it? It's against my consent. That might be something there good to use in a case. Hey, it says that I'm not supposed to have a tax without a consent. I don't consent to a property tax. Says it right in the founding documents. So I want my property tax gone. Maybe somebody should catch on to that one. For depriving us in many cases of benefits of trial by a jury. Damn. Did y'all hear this? Depriving us in many cases the benefits of trial by jury. That's every family court out there. That's a violation of our foundation documents. Hey, quote it in your case. I didn't get a trial by jury. You realize this was in the Declaration of Independence. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretend offenses. We want our things to have here. For abolishing the free system of English law in its neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government instead of just us taking care of ourselves under common law. You're going to send in an arbitrary government to stand over us. Because when you go to the common law thing, which is what we're supposed to be all under, which is the Constitution itself, We're not even supposed to be in these other courts. That's why they're commercial courts. Hey, if you went under common law, then you would assemble the people and have some common sense and go through. Listen, we've got so many people that are here. Let's pool the jury, get the jury in, and this and that, and have somebody stand over this that's qualified, that is of good reputation to judge over us under common law. That usually goes to the judge. Or, you know, what they say, the sheriff's couldn't intervene. I've done the will of the people. Bring it before the judge. That's why the judges used to travel all the time. Did you guys know that? To make sure that they didn't sit still and they couldn't get biased. They were traveling judges. And they'd have multiple. Now, in small areas that weren't so compact, that were more spread out, it wasn't always the case, but that was the goal within our country, is to have judges move around, but not the same area. Excuse me. This cough is about to kill me. Fall's coming. For abolishing any of the free system, English law, this arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries. You ever notice how the county doesn't get bigger, but the cities get bigger? We annex them in. That right there is what they're doing right here. We're going to put you under city stuff because that's even more. We're going to force you in the cities to abide by all these codes and statutes, this and that. And just by you selecting where you live in the city, you are now bound by our laws because you bought a house and it comes with that contract. That's bullshit. And that's entrapment. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, constitutional law, right? They've abolished it from the family stuff. Yes, Lewis, thanks. I've got an inhaler and I did take one, but I got to watch with my heart. I don't get too much. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, not just our government people, our families. For suspending our own legislators. In other words, where do you see common law courts anymore? Very, very rare. Took it over, pushed them out. And declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. In other words, taking that they're claiming jurisdiction over everything. They're insulating themselves, saying, leave me alone and let me steal the money and do the things I'm doing and allow me to do it as a protection. Hey, this is our business. This isn't federal business. No, it's not. Any case that has the state on either side has to go in federal court. And how many of your cases that you've had with CPS says the state of so-and-so, Department of Children and Family Services, whatever it may be, or whatever it's called in your state, versus you and or your spouse or anything else? That case is not supposed to be in a state court. Why? Because they're part of a state agency. That means all the agencies. If one of the agencies has got a complaint against a private citizen, a private person, an individual, it has to go to federal court per the Constitution. That has never been removed. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2. All cases where the state is involved in a case, the federal court or the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. And that has not been diverted because it has to be done on a case-by-case basis. Family court is not exempt to this. This is what's so corrupt, and nobody's catching this. This is part of what you're filing is, how can you do this? And part of your arguments when you get to court, how are you, explain to this jury and everybody else, tell me how you have jurisdiction when it says this in the Constitution and it's still there. That means everything that you did to me was fraud. Fraud upon the court, let alone it was criminal because you assumed an authority you didn't have. Now what? Now you got to answer. That's what they're afraid you're going to wake up to. You're going to figure this shit out. This is why they hate programs like everything that's on this network with the CPS Breaking News Network. And don't forget to check us out at www.cps Breaking News. That's on the website for all of our channels and stuff like that. Good place to do a plug there, guys. Sorry, it just hit me. But I think if so, I think Darren may be able to put that in the comments too, the website um, for us. But to focus in on this, and we're getting ready to wrap up some of the stuff. We're going to finish this last paragraph here on this column, and then we're going to move on. But yeah, check that stuff out there. But you see how there's a lot of similarities, and we're going to keep going on. These are just, see how they're adding up so fast? That's already going on today. He's abdicated government here by declaring us out as his protection and waging war against us. In other words, you're turning your back on us. You're supposed to be protecting us in this, and you're not. That wasn't our contract when we came to the New World. They're not protecting us now with the courts. They're turning on us. Sound familiar? He's plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. That's CPS all day. Last one, guys. He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to combat the works of death, desolation, tyranny already begun. I guess I'm going to have to scroll up to the top to finish the paragraph. With circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. What did we just see? Mass exodus from Afghanistan and all those other countries. The same thing that's happening over in England. You know, the immigration thing and all those people that were brought here. You know, Ireland, Scotland, all over the country. France, this and that, mass immigration, and are taking over their countries. They've turned against us, and they expect to hold power by doing what? Bringing in somebody else to war against us. Guys, I don't know what else to tell you. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what else to tell you. But this is just absolutely something. Well, guys, we're going to close things up, and wow. But yeah, there's a lot in there, guys. Chew on that. Make sure that that's shared out there. Us again. Check us out again next week. We've got even more we'll pick up. We'll give you more updates. It's about to hit the fan, man, and you guys are waking up, spreading the word, man. I'm getting stuff from all 50 states, man. People reaching out, wanting friend requests from Hawaii, California, Alaska, all sorts of stuff, wondering what the hell's going on. I'm hearing about this case and what's going on. And yeah, and it's about to kick into high gear, guys. And when it's all revealed, it's going to show every aspect of mass corruption nationwide exposed in open court for them to answer. And what are you going to do then? Because now the evidence is in a courtroom you don't control, and it's controlled by the people and the Constitution. And that's going to be everything. But once again, don't forget to love on each other, support each other. Don't forget, we told you about the case here in Tennessee, that new code. If you have that, file your appeal. File it under new evidence or, new statute, this and that. File it. You can get your kids back today, too. Start getting filing, guys. It can overturn your case, which means your kids have to come back home if you were found this stuff and then it was turned back. That's a huge thing, guys. This is what we have to keep up on, the modern stuff, not just the old stuff here and there, and weave it all together. Because once again, this is a skill, but a lot in the legal community have become lethargic and lazy, and they don't want to fight for somebody else. But it means a difference when it comes to your own land. We understood this way back during the American Revolution, that the hardest people to fight are people that are fighting for their families and for their home ground. Thanks again, guys. We'll catch you again next week. Have a great weekend.
They shatter with the stroke of a pen. Truth buried deep. Oh, here we go again. Gunner's voice pounding, raising up the fight. Justice ain't a whisper, it's a battle tonight. System cracks, red tape wins tight, but the spirit won't break, even in the night.